Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So recently I showed off a Ruger 1911A1. It's a pretty standard gun. Little upgrades as we were expecting on our 1911s these days, and it's a good gun. Had a nice triggers, very well made. My only objection to it was that Ruger's MSRP was a little steep for what you get, I thought. But they never sell at MSRP, so that really doesn't matter. However, it did have a fatal flaw. It was a stock gun. I don't really do stock 1911s. So a few weeks ago, I undercut the trigger guard and cut some 20 line per inch checkering on the front of the grip frame. And the other night I was bored and unsupervised and was going through my parts. And I did a me thing. Before we get into the weeds on that, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. It's very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. Also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses that have helped the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make this work. And as always, shout out to Rain City Shooting Center in Kent, Washington for providing material support to the channel and being all around nice folks. So, what else did I do? Well, I ran across a .45 caliber slide that I had. That works. The Ruger's a .45. And I fancied the look of a 1980s style two-tone gun, something along the lines of the Colt Combat Elite or innumerable custom guns of the period. So I did this. I fitted the slide with the Ruger barrel bushing and recoil system, and it's really a snug fit. There is no movement at all in this slide, which is kind of both good and bad because it can mean that a 1911 becomes a little more susceptible to gunk. I also, looking through my parts bin, saw these crazy grips I made, and they just happened to fit this magwell I had lying around. And while I was at it, I did a little work on the trigger. So today, I took it to the range for the first time to try it out and see how it works. So let's have a look at how that went. That was better than I expected. That was actually quite good. It went really well, with the exception that under the lighting conditions at the indoor range, I was having difficulty resolving the rear sight, which did nothing for my accuracy. So it's clear I either need a new rear sight or new eyeballs. And the rear sight is much cheaper and easier than new eyeballs, so that's probably the way I'll go. So let's take it to the tabletop and have a look at the changes. Okay, as you can see, this is a standard 5-inch 1911, and it does have a GI-ish slide. These sights are slightly better than standard GI, and as I pretty much always do, I painted the front sight orange. But in this case, at the range, it turned out that the stock rear sight was the problem. That very shallow notch just did not work for my aging eyes. This has still the stock Ruger hammer and internals, and safety, the flat mainspring housing, which I've scuffed up a bit, but excrement occurs. And initially, a few weeks ago, I did hand-cut checkering on the front strap and undercut the trigger guard and put some serrations under the trigger guard because that's how I like it. And there it sat. And then the other night I was bored and I got to pawing through my parts bin and found some interesting stuff like this slide, which is pristine and new. Don't worry, I'll fix that. And as I said, I fitted the Ruger barrel bushing and recoil system, fitted the slide up nicely, and got it working very well, very smooth, very tight. It's actually tighter than the Ruger slide was. So, well, this one was hand fitted, that one wasn't. Not too surprising. Plenty of oil. And the trigger, which was already good, is now notably better. It's only about a quarter pound lighter, which brings it down to about 3 pounds. But the already lovely reset is now extremely short. The grips are something I had laying around from a previous project. And these are made out of 3 different kinds of hardwood, which was just scrap from my knife making, that I glued up into these slabs and then cut and made into grips. And using a 2.5 millimeter ball, I textured the hell out of them because I like that. And of course, since they were already cut for the magwell funnel that was also lying around, it was natural for things to progress from there. Honestly, the checkered flat mainspring housing, I can't recall if that was original, but it has been a little contoured at the bottom so that it's not catching on the bottom of my hand the way it did originally with the grips that were on it. And overall, it's just a series of small incremental improvements, except for the sights, which are definitely not an improvement. My first step in trying to rectify that will be deepening and widening the rear notch to try and make it more obvious, because that is bloody shallow, and it was a problem at the range. So I'll try to fix it before I go to the extent or trouble of replacing it with something more obvious, easy to see, whatever. But overall, I like the gun better now. As I say, the slide to frame fit is tighter. The barrel was easy to fit properly to this slide, and it locks up nicely, works great. And I didn't even have to do any real matching to get the slide and frame to match properly. So, kind of a low effort conversion, but I like it a lot. So the only issue I had with this at the range, by the way, was with this random generic stainless magazine that I have no idea where it came from. But when using the Mechgar, Ed Brown, and Chip McCormick magazines, the gun cycled flawlessly. So I'm going to write it up to this magazine, which I'm probably going to mark in such a way that I remember this is not a very good magazine. 1911's magazines are critical. And most of your failures in feeding and things like that, I have found over the years, tend to be a magazine thing, if the rest of the gun is at all properly fitted and assembled. Now, this was always a nice gun, and I liked it well enough, but combination of poor impulse control, easily amused, and lack of adult supervision, a 45 in my possession is never going to stay stock. And there was no reason for this one to be the exception. So I like it better now. And it's more fun. I will be shooting it more, and I am almost certainly not done modifying it. It's in 45 caliber because it was originally in 45 caliber. And while I do have a 9mm slide, it has a Clark Para ramped barrel, which will not fit in this frame without modifying either the barrel or the frame, and I have no inclination to do either. So it's going to remain a 45. Unless it becomes a 38 Super, but probably not that. I have been thinking 10mm-ish thoughts because I am certain that the Ruger is stout enough to accommodate high round counts of that potent cartridge, and I don't have a 10mm. We'll see. But for now, I'm quite satisfied with what it is after I modify that rear sight or replace it with something that works better. And it has satisfied my urge to tinker. Anyway, I like it better. It will probably see future modifications. And, that's very much a me thing, as you have no doubt noticed. So, that's the Ruger redo at this point. And that's pretty much it for this time. So I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.